Well, the race for Seattle's next mayor is on. 9 candidates have filed their names for the primary election on August 5th. With the general election November 4th, there are some cries for change in leadership from the incumbent, Bruce Harrell.
And one of the candidates gaining public support is Joe Mallahan. He is live with us in the studio on Seattle's Morning News. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
First and foremost, do the Mariners retire 251s? Does that sit well with you?
I think both those 51s deserve retirement.
I do too.
So, Joe, the last we heard from you was, back in 2016 when you were running for mayor. It actually, you and Mike McGinn were the two finalists, beating out Greg Nichols, who was the incumbent mayor.
We squeaked by Greg in the primary, and then McGinn beat me by a little bit over 1%. Actually, I hate to show my age, but that was actually 2009.
Oh, 2009.
Yeah. Time's flying. Time
is flying. So bring us up to speed. What's your background? Why should you be the next mayor of Seattle?
Yeah, well, I mean, first, I just think we really have it in us to have a model city for progressive government, and we just don't see our values on the streets. And I think that's just because we have a lack of leadership in city government. And I jumped into the race because I don't think there's another candidate that can actually beat Bruce in the general. And I think Bruce has badly mismanaged city government. He's allowed the police department to develop there's a lot going on there, but there's a dysfunctional and demoralized police department. And he hasn't been an activist mayor, even remotely in that regard. And homelessness continues to be a huge problem, and he shows very little vision. We've sort of ceded power to decision-making to King County Regional Housing Authority, which seemed like a good idea at the time, but we're getting nothing done. And I think I've got a plan that can get that done.
Boy, 2009. That was a long time ago. How would you say the city has changed since 2009, and what has changed about you that makes you
that's a great question.
The right person to take it over?
I'll tell you, I'm a much better candidate than I was when I lost to Mike McGinn. And God bless Mike. He ran a great campaign, and I ran an okay campaign. What's changed in Seattle, again, our streets are dirtier and less safe. And we, again, we have great progressive values. Well, progressivism would tell you we would take care of the homeless. And quite frankly, we disserve the homeless. We need to add a ton more emergency bedding and get people off the streets and into treatment. You can't treat people for addiction and mental health problems when they're on the street. You just can't. And, we've done an okay job building more affordable housing, although I think there's a lot more we can do. But we've really kind of ignored this key factor. There's just not enough emergency bedding, and therefore people are still on the streets.
Let's talk about homelessness, because you and I bumped into each other at a recent homeless camp cleanup. And one of the major underlying factors, really, there are basically 3 underlying factors: housing affordability,
sure.
But certainly substance abuse and mental health. And we are not addressing substance abuse in this city. And that is to say that when we have an approach where it's harm reduction, instead of actually asking people about going into treatment proactively. Talk to me about your take on that and how we might change our approach.
I'm glad the drug courts are coming back. I think there needs to be an incentive. We need to, I hate to use this term, but we need to hold the homeless accountable. Now, the vast majority of homeless have mental health and addiction problems, so asking a lot from them isn't reasonable. But you can certainly tell them, look, you can't sit here and deal in and consume drugs in the public space. It's just, it's bad for the common good. It's bad for you. And, we need you to get into treatment. And so there needs to be a little bit of push to treatment, I really believe. But right now, we don't have the housing. Again, I mean, emergency beds, and I'd love to talk about tiny homes. We don't have the housing right now to give them treatment. And so it's really on us, not the homeless. But if we had the housing, then, I would take an approach where there's a pretty gentle push to get folks into that. And just, hey, I got a place for you. You just don't have the right to sit here and be consuming drugs in front of people walking by.
What would you like to say about tiny homes?
So tiny homes are this amazingly efficient solution. A tiny home costs $5,000 to build when you're using volunteer labor, and there's all kinds of volunteer labor available. Sound Foundations Northwest has a warehouse down in Soto. They're cranking out 200 of these a year at $5,000 in materials cost, and they've got a fantastic template down there. And if we gave them more space, they could replicate that a couple times. And one tiny home gets 3 people off the street in a year, and that's because the average tenancy is only 4 months. You get a person in a place where they feel safe, they can settle down, they can start receiving treatment, they get sober, and then you look for more permanent, stable housing. And the academic studies on this, Baltimore, Detroit, and Austin, Texas have all done big tiny home developments, and the results are fantastic. Like 90% of people who get into a tiny home a year later are in stable housing still. So it's a fantastic solution, and quite frankly, the King County Regional Housing Authority, for what I perceive as nothing more than personality conflict and politics, is not promoting and pushing that hard. If we had a mayor who said, look, we're going to do tiny homes, we're going to provide wraparound services so those people get treatment and become stable, we could have a huge impact. There's something like 5,000 to 9,000 people on the streets. If we had 2,000 tiny homes, because of the 4-month average tenancy, in a year, we could get 6,000 people off our streets. It's a huge solution.
There's been a big influx of prostitutes on Aurora, North Seattle. We hear from residents there all the time about how the city is not addressing it. You could talk about the sex work, but let's maybe just talk about how it's affecting neighborhoods with regular shootouts and with sex acts happening in people's front yards. How do you address that?
I had a buddy up there at something like 90th and a couple blocks off Aurora, and he was saying, Joe, I love your talk points, but how are you solving this problem? Well, quite frankly, 2 of my talk points are a fully functional and fully staffed police department, and secondly, a massive reduction in homelessness. If you address those 2 things systemically, you could vastly improve the situation on Aurora Avenue. We simply don't have enough officers, and we've got this huge public safety and public sentiment problem around homeless, and we all suffer from this. Not just the homeless, we all suffer from it. And of course, that insecurity leads to prostitution, and prostitution leads to all kinds of other bad things. So we got to solve it at the root.
We're almost out of time. We're speaking with Joe Mallahan, running for Seattle mayor. You have said you will lead from the front lines.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I'm a business person. I have 30 years of management experience, and I've turned around a couple of small or medium-sized companies. And I've done big things at T-Mobile as well, and I've always done that by getting on the front line. I worked the midnight shift at a warehouse for a week to understand the process problems. My biggest thing is at T-Mobile, I visited customer service centers all the time and sat and listened to customer calls, and then brought a group of customer service people together and said, hey, how do I fix these problems? And we innovated an amazing product that gave low-income and bad credit customers massively better value based on an idea I stole from a young customer service rep in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So that's what I mean by getting on the front line. I'm going to do 50 ride-alongs with the police in my first year to bring the police back together with the community. That's standing shoulder to shoulder with the people of Seattle and the employees of Seattle to get big things done. We got great values here. We just need to dig in and get those things solved and execute on our values.
What's your theory of the case in terms of making it to the general? I generally tend to see that we have somebody who's a bit more to the left and more, not necessarily a centrist, but somebody who's center left. So for your example, you guys beat out Greg Nichols, and McGinn was a little bit more to the left, and you were center left.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. Good for McGinn for positioning himself as left of me. I hate to tell your listeners, but I am quite left. But I am a pragmatic leftist. I mean, truth is, conservative values and left values are almost the same. They overlap 80%. We want to take care of people. We want to love each other. And we want to give each other the right to express ourselves and, follow our, pursue our constitutional rights. And so I'm quite left. I'm as left as Katie Wilson, but I did not come out for defund the police. And I think I am a far more electable left candidate than Katie is. God bless her. She's done some great things. I think the Jumpstart tax is a real win for Seattle for revenue, and I think it's a just tax. And she really led on that. But I'm far more electable, and I've got 30 years of management experience.
We are almost out of time. If you're not running for mayor or turning a business into something successful, what are you doing with yourself?
I'm laying on a beach. I'm 62 years old. I just retired from T-Mobile, and I think I got 8 years of great energy left in me. So I'd love to spend it serving the city of Seattle and its people.
Okay, well, if you're elected, past couple administrations have kind of been opaque with the media. You promise you will let us in and
Come
give
on by
regular
anytime.
updates.
Absolutely. I love being in this room with you guys. I'm sure the questions will be harder next time when I'm mayor. Thanks for your time.
Awesome.
Joe Mallahan, running for mayor of Seattle. We have issued invitations to other candidates as well.